It all started with a question nobody wanted to ask aloud, but everyone was thinking, did Meghan Markle try to erase a part of her past that the world wasn't supposed to see? On one of the busiest mornings of live television, Piers Morgan leaned into his microphone with that familiar, half-smirk, half-scowl expression and dropped a comment that would ignite social media like a wildfire. The words were simple, but the impact was seismic. She really thought deleting those yacht photos would make them disappear. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Just like that, millions of eyes turned to screens around the world. Twitter exploded with outrage, amusement, and disbelief. Instagram stories and TikTok reels were flooded with recreated clips, side-by-side memes, and animated GIFs mocking the once pristine image that Meghan had carefully curated over the years. And the yacht photos, the ones she had hoped would remain private, buried somewhere in the depths of the internet, became the flashpoint for a global spectacle of judgment. But why did this matter so much? Why did the deletion of a few photos spark an international debate about her character, her life, and even her morality? The answer is layered, complex, and deeply human. In the age of social media, where every click, every like, every comment contributes to a story far bigger than any single person can control, Meghan's deleted photos weren't just about yachts, glamour, or luxury. They became a symbol. A lightning rod for public opinion, a canvas on which millions projected their frustrations, fantasies, and expectations of what a modern royal or celebrity should be. Now, imagine the pressure she faced. Every move dissected, every smile scrutinized, every photo, every outfit, every offhand comment weighed down with centuries of historical expectation and a relentless media lens. And yet, here was Piers Morgan, a man notorious for his relentless commentary, sitting live on air and dismantling her public persona in real time. And the world watched, riveted, horrified, entertained. The question on everyone's mind, how did we get here? And what did these yacht photos really show? It's easy to dismiss this as just another celebrity scandal. After all, the tabloids thrive on it, and social media amplifies every tiny misstep. But the story of Meghan Markle's deleted yacht photos is far more revealing than a simple gossip item. It exposes the fragile, contradictory nature of fame, the double standards faced by women in the public eye, and the way society gleefully tears down those it once lifted up. It shows how one moment of judgment, amplified by a network like Piers Morgan's, can spiral into a phenomenon that everyone, from celebrities to ordinary people, feels compelled to comment on. And make no mistake, everyone had an opinion. Social media users, journalists, celebrities, even politicians weighed in, some in support, some in ridicule, and some with sheer bewilderment. Memes circulated that painted Meghan as everything from a careless yacht girl to a victim of relentless public scrutiny. The lines between fact and rumor blurred, leaving the audience in a perpetual state of anticipation, eager to see what would happen next, yet fearful of the emotional punch that awaited. Consider this. Deleting something from social media is no longer a simple act of privacy. It's a statement. It says, intentionally or not, I want to control the narrative. But when the world refuses to let you control that narrative, when the deleted content lives on in screenshots, news reports, and online chatter, that act of deletion transforms into a symbol of guilt, secrecy, or even defiance. That's exactly what happened here. What was meant to be a quiet retreat from the spotlight became the exact opposite, a global moment of collective scrutiny, debate, and, for some, schadenfreude. And then there was Piers Morgan. His timing couldn't have been more precise. A live television audience, a sharp tongue, and a history of merciless commentary combined to turn a social media mishap into a full-blown public spectacle. You can delete all you want, he said, his voice dripping with disdain. But the internet remembers everything. It was a line that would be quoted thousands of times across platforms, a line that set the tone for the ensuing chaos. But here's where the story gets even more complicated. It wasn't just Piers or just social media users. Other celebrities, some who had been friendly with Meghan in the past, and others who had long-standing grievances, began to weigh in. Each comment, each joke, each shared post acted like a pebble in a pond, creating waves that spread across the digital world. And yet, beneath the laughter and ridicule, there was a gnawing tension, an acknowledgement that something far deeper was at play. What did these photos reveal about Meghan? Were they harmless snapshots of a glamorous lifestyle, or did they expose contradictions in the carefully crafted image she presented to the public? To fully understand why this moment became such a media spectacle, we need to step back and examine the mechanics of fame in the 21st century. Unlike previous generations, where a scandal might fade with the next newspaper cycle, today's digital environment is unforgiving and permanent. Screenshots, reposts, and digital archives ensure that nothing truly disappears. Deleting a photo isn't erasing it. It's creating a trail, an echo that whispers across platforms, reminding viewers that someone, somewhere, decided that the image was too controversial to remain visible. So, why did Meghan delete these photos in the first place? Speculation ranges from personal regret to strategic PR maneuvering. Some suggest it was an attempt to maintain the image of a responsible, modern royal in the eyes of the public. Others argue that the deletion was more about controlling a narrative already spinning out of control, a preemptive strike against judgment that was inevitable once Piers Morgan decided to speak. And of course, the human element cannot be ignored. Perhaps there was embarrassment, a private feeling of being caught off guard, or simply the desire to reclaim some autonomy over a life under relentless public scrutiny. The reactions were immediate and overwhelming. Social media users dissected every angle, every comment, every nuance of Piers Morgan's broadcast. Hashtags trended, memes spread like wildfire, and opinion pieces poured into major newspapers and online publications. But the most fascinating part wasn't just the criticism. It was the way people seemed to forget that Meghan was a real person, capable of feeling hurt, anger, or frustration. The public spectacle transformed into a kind of performance, with viewers as active participants, judging, laughing, and sharing commentary with friends. And this brings us to the central tension of the story, the collision of personal privacy and public life. Meghan's deleted yacht photos weren't just private moments. They became a litmus test for public sentiment, an indicator of how a figure of fame navigates scrutiny, judgment, and relentless media attention. Each reaction, each comment, acted as a mirror, reflecting not just her image, but society's fascination with celebrity culture, morality, and hypocrisy. But what truly sets this story apart from ordinary gossip is the stakes involved. We're not just talking about a few photos on a phone or social media account. We're talking about a woman whose every move is dissected, whose every decision is debated, whose image is constantly curated, and whose past is never allowed to remain private. And now, with Piers Morgan's live commentary igniting global discussion, the deleted yacht photos have become a symbol of something much larger. The tension between private life and public expectation, between curated image and raw reality. So what happens next? How does someone like Meghan navigate a world where even deleted photos become weapons in a cultural battle? How does public opinion, amplified by figures like Piers Morgan, shape not just perception, but reality itself? And most importantly, what secrets might still be hidden behind the images that were thought to be erased forever? The answers aren't simple. They involve layers of media strategy, public reaction, celebrity culture, and human psychology. But one thing is certain, the story isn't over. The deleted yacht photos, the mocking commentary, the online outrage, these are only the beginning. The next moves, the hidden reactions, the private moments behind closed doors. That's where the real drama unfolds. It began innocuously, almost like a whisper in the wind, a photo quietly circulating on social media, at least at first. But whispers have a way of becoming roars when it comes to celebrity culture, and nothing illustrates that better than Meghan Markle's deleted yacht photos. One image, a snapshot of her sunbathing on a luxurious yacht with sparkling blue waters stretching endlessly behind her, became the trigger for a storm nobody could have predicted. To some, it was harmless, a glamorous escape, a moment of leisure. To others, it was proof of something far more controversial, a contradiction to the public persona she had carefully curated for years. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Within hours, screenshots were being shared, reposted, and analyzed. Social media accounts that had never focused on Meghan before were suddenly dissecting every detail. The designer swimsuit, the luxury brand logo on the yacht, even the way her hair caught the sunlight. Every frame was a story, every pixel a clue. People began debating not just the photo itself, but what it implied about her life, her choices, and her intentions. And the more people shared, the more the story grew, feeding on itself like wildfire. But why did these images cause such a frenzy? On the surface, they were just photos. She was vacationing, enjoying life, something everyone does. Yet, in the court of public opinion, perception often outweighs reality. Meghan had built a reputation as a modern, relatable figure, someone who balanced celebrity with responsibility, style with substance. These yacht photos challenged that narrative, and the clash was irresistible to the media and the public alike. The timing of their emergence made it even more dramatic. Just as Meghan was attempting to solidify her post-royal identity, the images resurfaced, undermining months of careful image management. They painted a picture of a glamorous lifestyle that seemed at odds with the public narrative she had worked so hard to control. Suddenly, Meghan was no longer just a former royal or a public figure. She was the embodiment of contradiction, a lightning rod for debate about privilege, authenticity, and the pressures of fame. And then came the mocking commentary. Piers Morgan, never one to shy away from confrontation, seized the moment on live television. His words were sharp, cutting, designed to provoke and entertain. "Deleting photos doesn't erase your past," he said, smirking. "It just makes it more interesting for the rest of us." Those words weren't just commentary. They were a spark thrown into dry kindling. Social media erupted, with hashtags trending globally, memes multiplying by the second, and every major news outlet covering the story from their own angle. What made the story particularly explosive was the sheer number of voices chiming in. Celebrities, journalists, social media influencers, and even ordinary users with large followings weighed in. Some defended Meghan, framing the photos as harmless fun, while others condemned her, questioning her authenticity and judgment. Each reaction created a feedback loop, amplifying the controversy and keeping it in the public eye for weeks. But beyond the spectacle, the photos themselves revealed more than just leisure. Observers scrutinized the surroundings, the brands, and even the behavior captured in each image. Details that might have seemed trivial, a yacht brand, a sun hat, the angle of a lounge chair, became evidence in an unwritten trial of public opinion. People began crafting narratives. She was flaunting wealth. She was out of touch. She was hiding something. Every theory gained traction, regardless of its truth, and every retweet, repost, and comment fueled the frenzy. Meghan's response, or lack thereof, added another layer of intrigue. By deleting the photos, she attempted to regain control, to remove them from public view. But deletion in the digital age is rarely effective. Screenshots persist, archives exist, and the act of removing something often draws even more attention. In trying to erase the images, she inadvertently amplified their visibility. What was meant to be a private retreat or a minor embarrassment became a global talking point, examined in endless detail by fans, critics, and curious onlookers alike. Even more fascinating was the cultural context. Meghan was navigating not just celebrity scrutiny, but historical scrutiny. As a former member of the royal family, every action was examined through a lens of tradition, expectation, and morality. The yacht photos were no longer just personal snapshots. They were a symbol, a touchpoint in a larger conversation about privilege, decorum, and modern royalty. Every comment, every post, every news headline was filtered through this context, intensifying the reaction and magnifying the stakes. And yet, amid the outrage, there was humor, irony, and a strange sense of fascination. Memes portrayed Meghan lounging dramatically on yachts. Captions lampooned perceived excess, and social media users debated minutiae that no one outside her circle would even notice. The yacht photos had become more than images. They were cultural artifacts, symbols of how fame, power, and public perception collide in the digital age. But what made this moment even more critical was that it wasn't just about Meghan. It was about all of us, as participants in a world where private moments can become global spectacles in an instant. It was about the insatiable curiosity of the public, the amplification power of social media, and the way a single image can redefine a narrative overnight. By the end of the week, the yacht photos were everywhere. They had sparked debates on news panels, late-night television, and online forums. They had prompted discussions about privilege, authenticity, and the ethics of public scrutiny. And for Meghan, they represented yet another challenge in navigating a life where every action is dissected, every image is scrutinized, and every choice is interpreted as a statement. Just when it seemed the frenzy might settle, a new twist emerged. Someone close to Meghan, an insider who had previously stayed silent, began hinting at additional context, suggesting there was more to the story than anyone realized. This revelation promised to shift the conversation yet again, keeping the world on edge, waiting for the next move. The yacht photos, initially a minor scandal, had grown into a symbol of something far larger. The tension between private life and public scrutiny, the unpredictability of fame, and the relentless power of media narratives. And as Piers Morgan's live TV commentary reminded everyone, in the digital age, nothing ever truly disappears. Because just when you think the story has reached its peak, the reality behind the images, the motives, the reactions, and the consequences has a way of emerging, often in the most unexpected ways. And what came next would challenge assumptions, reveal hidden truths, and set the stage for an even more dramatic series of events, one that no one, not even Meghan herself, could have fully anticipated. The moment Piers Morgan opened his mouth on live television, the atmosphere changed. It wasn't just commentary, it was a masterclass in provocation. He had the confidence, the timing, and the history with Meghan Markle that made every word feel loaded with impact. Millions were watching, and within seconds, social media lit up like a circuit board on fire. His voice, dripping with sarcasm, carried across screens in homes, offices, and mobile devices worldwide. She thought deleting those yacht photos would make them disappear, he said, with that trademark smirk. Newsflash, they didn't. From the first syllable, it was clear that this was not just another gossip segment. Piers Morgan had a unique way of framing stories. A mix of judgment, performance, and calculated outrage that seemed to exist for one purpose: to ignite conversation. And ignite conversation he did. Twitter exploded. Clips of the broadcast were clipped and shared thousands of times within minutes. Memes appeared almost instantly, some poking fun, others dripping with critique. The yacht photos, once a private or semi-private moment, had now been weaponized in a live television spectacle. But why did Piers Morgan's comments hit so hard? After all, he wasn't the first person to mention the deleted photos. The difference was his platform, his voice, and the undeniable sense of authority he projects. Millions trust him, watch him, and react to him. When he framed Meghan's deletion of the yacht photos as an act of avoidance, an attempt to hide her lifestyle from public scrutiny, it became more than criticism, it became a public judgment. And in the court of public opinion, his words carried weight. Morgan's approach was theatrical, almost surgical. He didn't just ridicule. He layered his commentary with insinuations and implications that suggested a broader narrative. He framed Meghan as someone attempting to control the narrative, someone playing a sophisticated game of image management that ultimately backfired. "It's fascinating," he said. "She deletes a photo here, deletes a post there, and yet the world sees more than ever. Isn't that the irony?" His commentary wasn't just about the photos themselves. It was about the tension between intention and perception, privacy and public life. The audience reaction was instantaneous. Clips of the broadcast were shared across Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, often accompanied by captions dripping with shock or amusement. Fans and critics alike debated every word. Some praised Morgan for telling it like it is, framing him as a truth-teller in a world obsessed with celebrity polish. Others criticized him, accusing him of cruelty or obsession with Meghan's life. The discussion was global, amplified by news outlets, opinion columns, and late-night talk shows. Within hours, the story had taken on a life of its own, independent of the photos or the original broadcast. And yet, the drama wasn't just online. Piers Morgan's live TV segment influenced mainstream media coverage. Newspapers and websites ran headlines quoting him directly. often using his phrasing to frame stories in a sensational manner. Headlines like "Morgan slams Meghan's yacht deletions" or "Piers Morgan on Meghan. Deleting photos won't hide your past" appeared across platforms. Each article drove further engagement, increasing curiosity and fueling debate. In effect, Morgan's live commentary acted as both spark and amplifier, ensuring that the yacht photo controversy dominated public consciousness for days. But it wasn't only the commentary itself that drew attention. The context in which it was delivered amplified its impact. Piers Morgan has a history with Meghan Markle, a complex mix of admiration, critique, and personal grievance. This backstory gave every word added significance. Viewers didn't just hear a critique of a deleted photo. They heard decades of media scrutiny, personal opinion, and a challenge to Meghan's carefully curated public persona. Every laugh, every sarcastic pause, every smirk was loaded with layers of meaning. The timing, too, couldn't have been more strategic. By commenting on the deleted yacht photos just as public interest peaked, Morgan ensured maximum attention. His live segment became water cooler conversation, trending topic, and viral clip all at once. And in an era where immediacy and virality dictate relevance, he had mastered the formula. Millions of viewers, whether watching live or catching clips later, were drawn into the spectacle, unable to look away. Piers Morgan's commentary also served to frame the narrative in a way that encouraged further engagement. He asked rhetorical questions, nudged the audience toward judgment, and created a sense of moral stakes. How much control can anyone really have over their public image? He asked. Can deleting a photo ever undo the story it tells? These were not idle musings. They were calculated provocations designed to engage viewers on a deeper level. People didn't just consume the content, they debated it, internalized it, and reacted to it emotionally. But what made this moment truly significant wasn't just the live broadcast or the memes it spawned. It was the ripple effect, the way other voices, both public and private, were drawn into the unfolding narrative. Influencers, commentators, journalists, and even other celebrities began to weigh in, some siding with Morgan, others defending Meghan. Every response became part of a feedback loop, further amplifying the controversy and keeping it alive in public discourse. And beneath all the humor, sarcasm, and public mockery, there was an undeniable human drama. Here was a woman whose private life had been scrutinized for years, whose every choice had been analyzed, judged, and dissected. And yet, despite attempts to manage her image, one photo, or a series of photos, became a catalyst for a global conversation that she could not control. Piers Morgan's mockery was not merely entertainment. It was a lens through which millions of people viewed, interpreted, and ultimately judged her. By the end of the broadcast, the world had a new narrative. Meghan Markle was no longer just a former royal or a public figure. She was a symbol of the tension between privacy and scrutiny, image and reality. And as Morgan signed off with his characteristic mix of wit and derision, one thing was clear: the yacht photo controversy was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. Because even as viewers laughed, shared memes, and debated his commentary, a more serious question lingered beneath the surface. How would Meghan respond, and what secrets still lay hidden behind those deleted photos? What came next would not just determine public perception, it would reshape the story entirely, revealing sides of the narrative no one had yet anticipated. The moment Piers Morgan's comments hit the airwaves, social media erupted with a force that seemed almost uncontrollable. Within minutes, hashtags were trending, memes were multiplying like wildfire, and people around the world were adding their voices to the chorus. It wasn't just Twitter. Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, and even Facebook became battlegrounds of judgment, support, and outrage. Every platform offered a different perspective, but all shared the same intensity. Meghan Markle's deleted yacht photos had become public property, and everyone wanted to weigh in. Some users approached the story with humor, creating memes that exaggerated her sunbathing poses, her designer swimwear, and even the yacht itself. Animated GIFs mocked her expressions, juxtaposing them with dramatic captions like "The Yacht Queen returns" or "Deleted but not forgotten." These visual jokes were instantly shareable, and within hours, they had spread across social media like a contagion, each repost fueling the next wave of laughter and critique. Others approached it with seriousness, dissecting the implications of her actions. Opinion threads emerged, debating whether Meghan's deletion of the photos was a calculated PR move or an attempt to hide something more personal. Some argued that her choices reflected a broader struggle with public perception, particularly as a former royal navigating a world of endless scrutiny. Discussions became heated, with people challenging each other's interpretations, sharing screenshots, and referencing past behaviors to support their points. Even casual observers felt compelled to participate. The story tapped into something universal, the thrill of judgment. Here was a public figure, meticulously photographed and analyzed for years, now vulnerable in a way that felt relatable to everyday people. Commenters debated, laughed, and speculated, creating a sense of participation in an unfolding cultural event. Social media users weren't just spectators. They were part of the narrative, influencing perception and shaping the story as much as the original images themselves. Celebrities and influencers soon joined the fray, each reaction adding a new layer of complexity. Some defended Meghan, framing the photos as harmless evidence of personal enjoyment and autonomy. Others criticized her, suggesting that the images contradicted the carefully constructed image she presented to the public. These reactions were widely shared, quoted, and analyzed, further amplifying the controversy. Suddenly, what began as a private or semi-private moment had become a global conversation, with millions of voices adding nuance, judgment, or ridicule. The sheer scale of the social media frenzy created a unique dynamic. Every post, every comment, every meme became a piece of evidence in a larger, ongoing narrative. Observers noted patterns. Supportive messages often triggered backlash, critical posts often prompted defense campaigns, and humorous content frequently went viral faster than serious analysis. The story took on a life of its own, independent of Meghan's intentions, her deleted photos, or even Piers Morgan's commentary. This frenzy also highlighted the power of digital permanence. Deleting a photo or post no longer guaranteed privacy or control. Screenshots, reposts, and archives ensured that the images lived on, circulating in ways she could not control. Every attempt to erase the photos seemed to intensify their visibility, creating what experts call the Streisand effect, where the effort to suppress information only makes it more widely known. Meghan's deleted yacht photos became a textbook example of this phenomenon, demonstrating how, in the age of social media, attempts to control one's narrative can sometimes backfire spectacularly. What made the frenzy particularly fascinating was the diversity of perspectives. Some commenters focused on the lifestyle implications, critiquing perceived excess or privilege. Others emphasized the human side, questioning whether public shaming was justified. Still others treated it as a spectacle, using humor, satire, and exaggeration to entertain themselves and their followers. Each viewpoint added complexity, creating a multi-layered conversation that was impossible to ignore. Influencers and micro-celebrities played a critical role in amplifying the story. Short videos, reaction clips, and commentary threads provided real-time analysis, often reaching millions of viewers in hours. Some created compilations of the yacht photos, adding humorous or sarcastic captions. Others dissected Piers Morgan's commentary, debating whether his tone was fair, cruel, or performative. Each new post added fuel to the fire, ensuring that the story remained trending across platforms. As the frenzy continued, the line between private life and public spectacle blurred even further. What began as a single deleted photo had transformed into a global cultural event, touching on themes of fame, scrutiny, and perception. Observers noted that the debate wasn't just about Meghan. It was about how society interacts with celebrity, morality, and media narratives. People were using her story to reflect on their own assumptions, biases, and expectations, creating a complex feedback loop that kept the conversation alive and evolving. And then came the unexpected twists. Anonymous leaks hinted at additional images, insiders suggested context nobody had considered, and media outlets promised follow-up reports that would further complicate the story. Each revelation, each hint of new information, added tension and anticipation, keeping audiences glued to screens, waiting for the next update. The social media frenzy was no longer a temporary burst of attention. It had evolved into a sustained, high-stakes drama, with global engagement and emotional investment. But amid the humor, speculation, and outrage, there was a deeper question. What did this say about our collective fascination with celebrity culture? Why did millions of people feel compelled to judge, analyze, and comment on someone else's private life? The yacht photos weren't just images. They were mirrors reflecting societal values, biases, and obsessions. And as the frenzy continued, it became clear that the story was bigger than Meghan herself. It was a case study in modern media, fame, and the digital age's relentless appetite for scandal. By the end of the week, the social media landscape had been transformed. Hashtags remained trending, memes were still circulating, and debate threads continued to grow. Even those who had initially ignored the story were now drawn in, unable to escape the tidal wave of commentary. The frenzy had taken on a life of its own, fueled by curiosity, judgment, and the simple human desire to witness drama unfold. And just when it seemed the conversation might settle, another wave hit. A celebrity, previously silent, made a cryptic comment that hinted at insider knowledge. Influencers speculated about what had been omitted, fans debated the authenticity of certain images, and journalists promised exclusive revelations that would shift the narrative yet again. The social media frenzy was far from over. In fact, it was about to escalate into something no one could have predicted, a chain reaction that would affect public perception, media coverage, and perhaps even Meghan herself. Just when it seemed the world had reached a saturation point with Meghan Markle's deleted yacht photos, an entirely new layer of drama emerged: the celebrity reactions. Suddenly, the story was no longer confined to social media debates or Piers Morgan's live mocking. High-profile figures, some longtime friends and allies, others distant acquaintances or past critics, began weighing in. Each comment, each subtle jab or overt defense, added fuel to a fire that was already burning out of control. The first wave of celebrity reactions was, unsurprisingly, polarized. On one side, there were supporters, those who defended Meghan's right to privacy and autonomy. A few influential actors and media personalities argued that deleting photos was a human act. Everyone makes decisions about what they want the world to see, and the backlash was disproportionate. They framed her yacht photos as harmless, ordinary moments in the life of someone living under constant scrutiny. Memes countering the criticism even emerged, portraying Meghan as a modern woman just trying to live her life. And these quickly went viral among her supporters. But the other side was far louder. Critics, some old adversaries, some commentators seizing the moment, and a few celebrities who seemed to relish taking a dig, unleashed a torrent of commentary that ranged from mockery to moral judgment. One late-night host joked about the great yacht cover-up. Another influencer wrote a thread analyzing every detail of the images, interpreting them as evidence of extravagance. Even comedians and podcasters joined in, framing the photos as emblematic of privilege and hypocrisy. Each reaction rippled across platforms, creating a feedback loop in which every opinion amplified the next. What made this phase of the story so compelling wasn't just the sheer volume of celebrity voices, but the contradictions embedded within them. Some individuals praised Meghan for her style and confidence, while simultaneously criticizing her for the perceived excesses in her lifestyle. Others expressed sympathy but couched their support in veiled critique, suggesting that even someone in her position has to be careful. These conflicting messages added layers of nuance and confusion to the public's understanding of the situation. It wasn't simply a binary of support or mockery. It became a tangled web of judgment, admiration, and curiosity. Meanwhile, the timing of these reactions was perfectly orchestrated by the media ecosystem. Clips of celebrity commentary were repackaged, shared, and analyzed almost instantly. Talk shows discussed reactions from actors and influencers. Late-night segments teased new commentary, and opinion columns quoted celebrity remarks to frame articles in ways that encouraged engagement. The story had evolved from a private photo deletion into a global cultural event with multiple intersecting narratives, each reinforced by a prominent public figure. Even more surprising were the reactions from celebrities who were seemingly neutral, but whose statements carried heavy implications. One high-profile actress, previously a close friend of Meghan, hinted at tensions behind the scenes, subtly suggesting that the deleted photos were only a small piece of a larger story. A musician, long rumored to be connected to Meghan's social circle, made an offhand joke on social media that was widely interpreted as a dig, and journalists seized upon it, analyzing context, tone, and timing. These indirect contributions added an almost detective-like layer to the controversy, leaving fans and critics alike speculating about hidden dynamics. As the celebrity commentary continued, a new pattern emerged: the amplification of collective judgment. Each new reaction, whether supportive, critical, or ambiguous, fed the frenzy that social media had already established. Memes and GIFs began incorporating celebrity quotes, news articles embedded reaction clips, and fan forums debated not just the photos but the motivations and histories of the commentators themselves. The yacht photos, initially a private matter, had transformed into a public performance, a stage upon which society played out its fascination with fame, morality, and human behavior. What made this celebrity turn particularly dramatic was the emergence of insider perspectives. A few former acquaintances and collaborators, previously silent, began hinting at personal stories and observations. Though vague, their comments suggested there was more context behind the yacht photos. Decisions, moods, and private conversations that no one outside her immediate circle had seen. These hints were tantalizing enough to keep media outlets hungry for new angles and social media users glued to screens, analyzing every word for hidden meaning. The unexpected nature of these reactions also introduced irony and tension. Some celebrities who had publicly criticized Meghan in the past now offered cautious support, creating a cognitive dissonance for observers. Others who had previously defended her began to question aspects of the yacht imagery, revealing the fickleness of public allegiances. This inconsistency made the unfolding narrative unpredictable, keeping audiences engaged, debating, and speculating on what each statement truly implied. By midweek, the combined weight of social media outrage, Piers Morgan's commentary, and celebrity reactions created a perfect storm. News cycles were dominated by the controversy. Online discussions reached record engagement levels, and every minor development, a retweet, a comment, a meme, sparked thousands of reactions. Meghan's deleted yacht photos had transcended their original context, evolving into a multidimensional story that touched on celebrity culture, media power, public judgment, and human curiosity. But amid the spectacle, there was an underlying tension. How would Meghan herself respond? Until now, she had remained largely silent, allowing the narrative to be shaped by commentators, influencers, and social media users. Each celebrity reaction was a reminder that the story had taken on a life beyond her control. The irony was undeniable. A moment intended to be private had become a public stage, with actors she hadn't invited playing lead roles. And as fans and critics watched these celebrity opinions unfold, a new twist was about to emerge. One that promised to complicate the story even further. A remark, subtle yet provocative, from a previously silent insider hinted that the yacht photos were only the beginning of revelations that no one had anticipated. The public frenzy, the live commentary, and the celebrity reactions were just the prelude to something far more explosive. By now, the world had seen the photos, heard the commentary, and witnessed the cascading opinions of celebrities and social media users alike. For Meghan Markle, it was a storm unlike any she had faced before, one that required careful navigation, swift decisions, and a strategy to regain some semblance of control over her public image. The yacht photos, intended to be private snapshots of a glamorous yet ordinary escape, had become a global phenomenon. And in a world where perception often outweighs reality, Meghan understood that inaction was not an option. Her first step was deletion. The images that had triggered the frenzy were quietly removed from her social media accounts. To the casual observer, this might have seemed like a straightforward act, a woman reclaiming her privacy, taking back what she could from the relentless gaze of public scrutiny. But in the digital age, deletion is rarely simple. Screenshots had already circulated, articles had quoted the images, and memes had immortalized moments she intended to obscure. Every attempt to erase the photos paradoxically amplified their presence, creating a Streisand effect that intensified the controversy rather than quelling it. Yet deletion was only the first layer of her strategy. Meghan's team understood that perception management extended beyond social media. Carefully crafted statements, selective public appearances, and controlled interviews were deployed to shape the narrative. Public relations experts emphasized the need to pivot the conversation, to focus on personal growth, charitable endeavors, and professional achievements rather than private moments of leisure. This delicate balancing act required precision. Too much explanation could suggest guilt, too little could imply indifference. Every word, every gesture, was scrutinized for what it revealed or concealed. Despite these efforts, challenges persisted. The media's framing of the yacht photos as a scandal had taken root, creating an environment in which even benign explanations were interpreted skeptically. Headlines emphasized judgment, with phrases like "yacht photos spark controversy" or "Markle's deleted photos cause uproar" dominating feeds. Public discourse was fueled by outrage, humor, and speculation. In this climate, Meghan's attempts to control the narrative had to compete not only with traditional media, but with the relentless velocity of social media amplification. The irony was palpable. While Meghan sought to maintain dignity and privacy, the public spectacle had already cast her as both defendant and spectacle. Each corrective measure she employed, whether deletion, explanation, or controlled appearance, was met with mixed reactions. Supporters praised her for composure, critics framed her actions as evasive, and neutral observers debated the sincerity of her efforts. It was a delicate dance, one that demanded both restraint and proactive engagement, balancing personal authenticity against the unyielding expectations of a global audience. To reinforce the narrative, Meghan strategically highlighted moments of professional and philanthropic significance. Public appearances were carefully curated to emphasize her involvement in causes, her dedication to mental health advocacy, and her projects outside the spotlight. Interviews were framed to underscore resilience, introspection, and empowerment. These moves were designed to shift focus from scandal to substance, presenting a multidimensional image of someone navigating immense scrutiny while remaining committed to personal values. Yet the yacht photos themselves remained a persistent specter. Each discussion, each meme, each celebrity remark reinforced their visibility. Even as Meghan sought to steer attention toward meaningful endeavors, the images refused to disappear from public consciousness. The tension between her attempts at narrative control and the public's insatiable curiosity created a high-stakes environment, one in which every action was magnified and interpreted in myriad ways. In response, Meghan's team also employed strategic ambiguity. Instead of directly confronting every allegation or meme, selective silence was used as a tool. By choosing which narratives to address and which to ignore, Meghan maintained a level of unpredictability, keeping observers uncertain and engaged. This approach leveraged the natural curiosity of the public, allowing speculation to fill gaps while controlling the core message. It was a calculated risk. Silence could be misconstrued as guilt, but it could also preserve dignity and mystery, reinforcing her autonomy over the narrative. The personal toll of this strategy, however, was significant. Living under constant scrutiny, especially when private moments are amplified to global proportions, takes an emotional and psychological toll. Friends and confidants reportedly advised caution, emphasizing the importance of self-care and measured responses. Yet even these measures had limits. The intensity of public and media attention meant that every decision, deletion, statement, or appearance carried enormous stakes. One misstep could undo carefully constructed efforts and reignite the controversy. Despite the challenges, Meghan remained committed to reclaiming agency. By controlling the timing, tone, and content of her responses, she sought to demonstrate composure, resilience, and intentionality. Strategic appearances, philanthropic highlights, and selective media engagement were all part of a broader effort to reclaim narrative space, asserting control in an environment where so much had already been dictated by external forces. It was a fight not just for public perception, but for personal narrative integrity. Yet even as Meghan worked diligently to shape the story, new complications arose. Former acquaintances hinted at context not previously disclosed, media outlets teased exclusive revelations, and social media users continued to speculate about motives and implications. Each development created additional pressure, forcing her team to adapt and respond, often in real time. The interplay between proactive narrative management and reactive crisis control became a central tension, one that would continue to define the unfolding saga. And as the world watched her navigate this intricate landscape, the lesson became clear. Controlling a narrative in the digital age is a high-stakes endeavor. Deletion, selective response, and strategic visibility are only pieces of a complex puzzle where public perception, media framing, and social media amplification interact in unpredictable ways. Meghan's attempts to manage the fallout from the yacht photos illustrate both the possibilities and limitations of agency in a world where privacy is a luxury and every action is subject to global scrutiny. But the story wasn't finished. Even as Meghan exerted careful control over her narrative, new revelations and unexpected responses were on the horizon. The images themselves, the commentary they sparked, and the unseen context behind them promised to shift the narrative once again. What Meghan thought was a strategy to reclaim control would soon collide with forces beyond her influence, setting the stage for even more dramatic developments that would leave the world, and her, reeling. To the casual observer, Meghan Markle's yacht photos might have seemed like a simple series of glamorous vacation snapshots, a sun-soaked escape, a stylish swimsuit, a luxury yacht floating on pristine waters. But the reality, as often happens with celebrity media, was far more complex. Every detail, from the angle of the camera to the background scenery, from subtle expressions to brand visibility, became a subject of scrutiny, debate, and interpretation. These images, which she had hoped would remain private, revealed far more than she probably intended, igniting conversations that range from fashion choices to questions about authenticity, lifestyle, and intention. Let's start with the most obvious, the setting. The yacht itself was no ordinary vessel. Sleek, modern, and undeniably expensive, it projected an aura of exclusivity. Critics immediately seized on the implication. Here was a former royal enjoying a lifestyle far removed from the everyday experiences of most people. For some, this seemed glamorous and aspirational. For others, it symbolized detachment, privilege, and a perceived disconnection from reality. Every frame was analyzed: the sparkling water, the distant coastline, the minimalist design of the yacht, all contributing to the narrative that Meghan was living a life few could imagine, let alone relate to. Then there was her wardrobe. Meghan's swimsuit, carefully chosen for both style and sophistication, became another flashpoint. Some praised her fashion sense, highlighting the designer details and sleek silhouette. Others critiqued the choice as ostentatious, using it as evidence of a lifestyle at odds with public expectations of humility or relatability. Even the simplest elements, sunglasses, hats, or jewelry, were parsed with obsessive precision. Every accessory became a statement, whether intentional or not, magnified by the relentless gaze of media and social commentary. But the photos weren't just about appearance. They were about posture, expression, and body language. In one image, Meghan was lounging on the deck, gazing toward the horizon, her expression unreadable. Was this serenity, contemplation, or calculated poise? Critics argued, supporters defended, and the debate escalated online. Each subtle gesture became evidence for a broader narrative, as though a single image could convey motive, character, and morality all at once. It was an extraordinary display of how context and perception converge in the interpretation of celebrity imagery. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the photos was their timing and composition. Taken during a period when Meghan was deliberately managing her public image post-royal life, the images inevitably raised questions about intention. Were they casual, spontaneous moments of leisure, or carefully curated images meant to project a specific persona? The debate was heated. Analysts dissected the photos frame by frame, comparing angles, lighting, and background elements to previous media appearances. Even shadows and reflections were scrutinized for clues, illustrating how, In the digital age, privacy is nearly impossible for someone of her stature. The photos also revealed more subtle, human aspects that often go unnoticed. A fleeting smile, a casual posture, or the way she held herself suggested confidence and comfort in her surroundings. Observers interpreted these signals differently. Some saw a woman enjoying freedom, embracing independence, and reclaiming agency over her life. Others read arrogance, indulgence, or detachment. These contrasting interpretations highlight the difficulty of judging intention based solely on imagery. Yet in the court of public opinion, such distinctions often matter less than perception. Another layer of complexity emerged when the context of social media deletion was considered. By removing the images, Meghan inadvertently drew more attention to them. The act of deletion suggested to some a consciousness of judgment, to others an attempt at narrative control. In either case, the deletion itself became a commentary, reinforcing the scrutiny applied to every other element of the photos. It was no longer simply a visual record of a moment. It was a symbol, a touchstone for broader societal discussion about privacy, celebrity, and public perception. Even technical details of the images played a role. Backgrounds, lighting, and composition were dissected by bloggers, journalists, and online commentators alike. The sparkling ocean, the distant coastline, and the minimalist yacht deck all became metaphors in social media debates. Some argued that these elements suggested detachment, privilege, or even elitism, while others emphasized aesthetic beauty and composure. The photos became, in essence, Rorschach tests for the public. People saw in them what they wanted to see, projected their own biases and judgments, and drew conclusions accordingly. Interestingly, the yacht photos also intersected with broader cultural narratives. They reignited debates about female agency, the ethics of public judgment, and the pressure on women in the public eye to constantly curate and justify their choices. Every observer, consciously or not, brought societal expectations into the interpretation. A woman in leisure is simultaneously celebrated for style and condemned for perceived extravagance. Meghan, in these images, became both icon and scapegoat, admired and criticized, depending on the lens through which she was viewed. The reactions weren't just confined to observers. They influenced media strategy and celebrity commentary. Each frame became a talking point for pundits, a meme for influencers, and a discussion starter for social media users. In effect, the images dictated the flow of conversation, shaping headlines, clips, and posts across every platform. What Meghan had hoped would remain a private indulgence had become a focal point for global analysis. Yet beyond criticism and judgment, the photos offered a rare glimpse of human nuance. There was confidence, relaxation, and perhaps even a moment of escape from the relentless pressures she faced daily. Observers who looked beyond immediate controversy could see a woman navigating autonomy in a world obsessed with appearances. It was a reminder that, despite public scrutiny, private moments retained traces of humanity, even when amplified for global consumption. And just when it seemed the yacht photos had been fully dissected, another revelation emerged. A subtle detail overlooked by the initial wave of commentary, hinting at connections, relationships, or context that added complexity to the narrative. The photos, it seemed, were far from exhausted in their capacity to reveal, provoke, and complicate the story. Every observer, critic, and supporter was left asking the same question: what else had been hidden, intentionally or not, behind the carefully curated images? The yacht photos, therefore, were not merely images of leisure. They were a cultural flashpoint, a mirror reflecting societal expectations, celebrity scrutiny, and the tension between privacy and public life. They were a catalyst for debate, judgment, humor, and speculation, and they would continue to influence the unfolding narrative in ways that no one, not even Meghan herself, could fully anticipate. What began as a few yacht photos quietly circulating online quickly escalated into a global media phenomenon, demonstrating the raw power of news cycles, commentary, and digital amplification. Within hours of the images surfacing, headlines appeared across websites, social media, and traditional news outlets. Each headline was crafted to maximize engagement. Some sensationalized, some questioned ethics, others leaned into humor or moral judgment. The narrative that Meghan Markle's deleted yacht photos had become a global talking point was no longer speculation. It was an undeniable reality. The process of media amplification was almost surgical. Newsrooms picked up on Piers Morgan's live commentary, quoting his most provocative lines and framing articles around his critiques. Headlines read like mini-battles. Morgan slams Meghan's deleted yacht photos, or Why Meghan Can't Escape the Spotlight Even on a Yacht. These articles were shared, retweeted, and reposted, ensuring that even audiences who hadn't seen the original photos or the TV segment were now aware of the story. Every share, every click, every comment contributed to a feedback loop, fueling the media machine that thrives on controversy. Online news outlets played a critical role in shaping perception. Analysis pieces dissected the yacht photos, highlighting details that might otherwise have gone unnoticed. The brand of the yacht, her fashion choices, and the timing of the images relative to public events. Opinion columns took it further, speculating on intent, lifestyle, and authenticity. Every interpretation, regardless of accuracy, became part of the larger narrative. In essence, the photos were transformed into storytelling tools. Each article added layers of drama, intrigue, and moral judgment. Social media platforms accelerated the amplification. Twitter threads broke down the photos frame by frame. Instagram memes went viral. TikTok videos analyzed the visuals with humor and sarcasm. Memes and GIFs, often exaggerated for comedic effect, were shared globally, reaching millions within hours. The virality of these posts wasn't just about entertainment. It was about cultural participation. Social media users were active participants, contributing their interpretations, biases, and emotions to the unfolding story. Every post, like, share, and comment served as fuel, ensuring that the media spotlight remained fixed firmly on Meghan. Television coverage added another layer. News segments and talk shows replayed the images, discussed the public reaction, and speculated on the implications. Pundits and anchors debated whether Meghan's deletion of the photos was a strategic move, a misstep, or a moment of vulnerability. Some commentators framed the controversy as evidence of a pattern, a narrative about fame, privilege, and the challenges of public life. Others approached it as a human interest story, emphasizing the psychological pressure on public figures. These broadcasts reached millions, reinforcing the photos' visibility and embedding the controversy deeper into collective consciousness. Celebrity commentary was woven into the media amplification as well. Quotes from actors, influencers, and public figures were included in news stories, often highlighting polarized opinions. Some headlines framed Meghan as a victim of relentless scrutiny, while others portrayed her as intentionally cultivating attention. Each perspective amplified the drama, ensuring that the story remained dynamic and unpredictable. In many ways, celebrities acted as both commentators and accelerators, their voices magnifying the impact of the original images. The economics of media amplification played a significant role too. Controversial content drives clicks, engagement, and ad revenue. Websites, news channels, and social platforms benefited financially from the story's virality. Every new article, segment, or meme generated traffic, creating an incentive to prolong coverage. As a result, the controversy was not just a cultural event. It was a product being commodified and circulated at an unprecedented pace. Meghan's yacht photos had inadvertently become a central commodity in a global attention economy. Even investigative journalism contributed to the amplification. Outlets began tracing the origins of the photos, analyzing metadata, and comparing them to other public appearances. Some reporters uncovered related images, providing additional context or contradictions to previous assumptions. Each discovery generated headlines, commentary, and debate, expanding the narrative and keeping audiences engaged. The media ecosystem, in this sense, functioned like a self-sustaining engine. Each new piece of information generated attention, which led to further reporting and analysis. Public engagement intensified the phenomenon. Online forums, fan pages, and discussion boards dissected every detail, comparing the yacht photos to other media appearances, exploring symbolism, and debating intent. The collective fascination was amplified by the participatory nature of modern media consumption, audiences were not passive viewers but active commentators, shaping the story with every post, share, or reaction. This interactivity created a sense of immediacy, urgency, and involvement, ensuring that the controversy remained in the public eye far longer than a single news cycle might typically sustain. And yet,